Stay tuned because I have an interesting take on flipping this plain looking waterfall dresser into something that possibly you've never seen before. So have you ever been blinded by inspiration or been so excited about something that you overlook the simplest details? Well, that's exactly what happened to me with this piece. It was priced just right and I had an idea for it, so I snatched it up and just took it home. Where do you get your inspiration from? I get my inspiration from all sorts of things. Being out in nature, or when I'm traveling somewhere and I see a piece of art, or something as simple as like rust on the side of a car. Things that we can associate, shapes and textures and everything that kind of sparks your interest. I'm inspired by so many different things. So when I look at a piece of furniture, I always try to envision not what it is, but what it kind of resembles, what it possibly could be. This cute little waterfall dresser is a short guy. He stands about 4 feet tall. He immediately reminded me of an old steamer trunk, specifically a Louis Vuitton steamer trunk, because of this rich edging that it had along the drawers and the sides. It really looked like, in my eyes, a steamer trunk. So my idea for it was to sand down all of the trim work to bare wood, stain it, and the inserts paint along with the fronts of the drawers to look like leather. These drawer pulls are pretty cute and they're actually in pretty good shape for its age, but I didn't feel they would be appropriate to the look, so I'll be removing them and saving them for a later project and coming up with a different idea for the pools. This project was a mess. I quickly lost steam because I had to do a lot of repair work on it. Oh my gosh. I had to replace the drawer bottoms. I had to replace the drawer glide. So the part that I overlooked at the store was all the drawers were jammed shut on this piece. So I was not able to inspect them, but I figured, oh, they're probably in just the wrong order and I'll mess with that when I get home. Wrong. When I got home, all the glides were completely shot. The bottoms were broken and tattered. The dovetail joints needed to be re-glued. They were a mess. I did all the internal repairs and that's where I lost steam. I pushed this aside into the corner and never thought about it until now. This is one feature that I really liked. They have the original casters and they're metal. How cool is that? Right, Panda? I started off this project as always by first removing all of the hardware and then giving it a thorough scrub down with a TSP based cleaner, followed by a rinse with clean water. These are the panels of wood I had cut out a year ago for the drawer bottoms. Everything was good on them except for the edges. They needed a little bit of sanding. They were kind of rough. The insides of the rest of the drawer had a lot of stain and markings on the inside, so that will be getting a good sand down as well. The fronts I only need to sand down just to get the finish and shine off so that I have a clean surface for paints. Along the sides of the drawers here you can see where I had to re-glue the dovetails. There was a lot of gapping in between that I also had to fill in with Bondo, so that will be getting painted as well. I was able to sand down everything with just 120 grit sandpaper, except when it came down to the actual dresser. Along the frame where it had that ridge detail, I was going to have to sand that down completely by hand, which would have taken forever. So instead I opted to bring out my soda blaster. My husband purchased this simple soda blaster from Harbor Freight for me. I just have it connected to an air compressor. This thing is a huge time saver. Always when using this, I wear proper PPE, some good goggles, a good quality respirator, some gloves, and then to also protect my skin, I usually just throw on a flannel or something. Here's what it looks like in real time.
Now that I'm looking back, I can see all the signs I tried to fill in the cracks that were spread in my mind, but I was all out of hope, lost in an endless maze. The emptiness had unfolded just like a void, but you broke the coldness somehow and lit up a flame. And ooh, I was done feeling hopeless, screamed out loud because it felt impossible in my bones, like getting blood out of the stone on my own. But you came around and removed the thorn in my soul. You guided me out of the storm. I found home in your arms of gold, in your arms of gold, in your arms of gold. It's funny how easily a life can be torn apart. Why couldn't I simply see that I was sick at heart and I am in deep debt? The climb we did was unreal. You made me so speechless. I just can't believe it. You broke the coldness somehow and lit up a flame. And ooh, I was my own enemy, screamed out loud.
For the staining part of this project, I went with this early American stain. I had just enough left over to finish this one project. It's a medium tone brown with a lot of golden undertones, which I thought would look really pretty. I just applied it with a foam brush and wiped it back with a microfiber cloth immediately. Funny story, I got a big box of stain from my neighbor across the street one day. I thought he used to think I was a weirdo, always doing projects in my driveway. Turns out he used to do a lot of custom cabinet work, and he came over with a big box of stain he wasn't using, so shout out to my neighbor Ruben if you're watching. To seal in all of the stained areas, I went with the Minwax polyurethane in a spray can just to save time. The reason why I decided to seal all the wooden parts right away is so that they wouldn't be porous anymore, so that when I went to paint the rest of the dresser, if I had any kind of areas where I overlapped onto the wooden parts, I could just wipe it away pretty easily. In order to get the dark brown color on the steamer trunk that I needed, I had to mix up my own. I started off with a base of chocolate and mixed in a little bit of caviar to darken it up. And then, so it didn't look so gray, I added in just a hint of kernel mustard until I got a blend that was close enough to what I needed. Here you see at the bottom, this is what it looked like with all those three colors. I matched it up to a bag I own. Once it's dry, it does darken up, so it's a pretty good match. As for the logo part, Pinecone was almost an exact match. I started off the painting process by cutting in all these edges with a flathead artist brush. For me personally, I find it a lot easier to just cut in all the edges with a good sharp brush rather than tape everything. It's a lot faster in my opinion, and if I happen to overlap any paint onto the areas where I don't want it, I can easily just wipe it away with a damp cloth. After everything was cut in, I filled in the rest with a smooth synthetic brush. To help the paint glide on a little cleaner in my dry climate, I like to mist the edge of the brush with a little bit of water in between dipping it into my paints. This particular paint does self-level pretty well, but helping smooth it along in the process is only going to give you better results. There was no question that the sides of the drawers needed to be painted, so I opted to look online for some inspiration and found a photo of a current makeup cabinet with a very light pink interior, and I thought it was pretty cute, so I decided to go with a peach color for the sides of the drawers. I painted all the way up to where the dovetails ended. And as you can tell, I didn't use a primer before going with this light color because when I was cleaning the piece, there wasn't a lot of tannins coming through in the water, so I knew more than likely it wouldn't bleed. Normally, I don't paint the interior of drawers unless I have to, and these ones weren't in bad shape, but since I painted the outsides already, I thought it would only be appropriate if I painted the insides as well. I'm just amazed at the difference a little paint can do. Look at this before and after. Now that all the base coats of paint were on, it was time to stencil the entire project. Started off with the drawers here. I used that dark brown custom color to stencil over the pink and this stencil that my friend made me. To stencil on, I use makeup sponges. You get a big pack like this I have just for the dollar store, and you know, $1 worth will last you a long time, especially if you don't stencil a lot like me. Honestly, I'm not a very good stenciler. I try to avoid it, but it was necessary for this project. I have the hardest time with stencil brushes, no matter if I try to swirl, if I try to tap, if I try to offload. So these makeup sponges are really the only way that I've been successful at stenciling at all. And the beauty of them is once you're done, you just toss them. To kind of pass away the time in this stenciling process that I knew was going to take a while, I was watching a little bit of Netflix with my son. We were watching that show. Nailed it! Upon dry fitting the sides of the drawers onto the new bottoms, I thought they looked just a little boring. So I decided to also stencil the bottom parts of the drawers. Because they were already brown, I opted to use that soft pink peachy color I used on the outside of the drawers. To seal those bottoms, I just use a little bit of spray polyurethane. And for the sides and insides of the drawers, I use my favorite DIY clear wax. I think it looks a lot better now. What do you think? Now it came time to stencil the outside of the dresser. This is where I used that color from Dixie Belle called Pinecone. Pinecone, surprisingly, is almost an exact match to that logo. So if you ever plan on trying this for yourself, Pinecone is going to be your go-to. One bonus I will say about stenciling is because very little paint is used. Once you're done with one section, it's pretty much dry, and you can line up a section of your stencil with the part you just stenciled to make a nice even flow with your pattern. To finish off the outside paint, I used my favorite top coat Minwax water-based poly acrylic in a satin finish and applied it with this blue foam sponge. What really is going to make the rest of this piece come together is all in the details. So I'm going to go into depth on this next section, showing you how to make your own drawer pulls out of leather in case you want to try it yourself. After placing a piece of cardboard down on the existing drawer holes and poking something sharp through, you'll know exactly how far you'll need your holes to be spaced. I'm going for one of those old school trunk handles that are kind of bowed in the middle and rounded on the edges. After you have the holes, you need to make another hole about 1/8 to 1/4 of an inch outside because you want your handle to bow a little bit. Folding your cardboard in half and matching up those existing holes will give you your center point. You want to fold over your leather piece as well. Place your template on top and make marks where the holes need to be. And now you want to go ahead and punch some holes down into those leather parts. And we're going to finish making the rest of the template. I just kind of drew a rounded corner around one side. And then I drew a little notch where I'm going to be placing another piece of leather. I'm only going to do half of the pattern and then I'll be folding it in half so that I can match the other half on the other side. And then I folded it in half one more time and drew a curved line from the edge towards the center so that both sides were even. You just want to cut out your shapes after that. And then we'll do some additional folding so that both sides match up. Here I am folding it lengthwise so that I can get the other parts to be even that need to be cut. I ended up not using these little notches I'm cutting out here, so just pay no attention to this part. It's cardboard, so it's a little stiff, so I just use my mallet to kind of smooth it out a little bit more. Once you have your template in place, put it on your leather. It looks fairly similar. And just with a pencil, I just drew around my pattern to cut out my first piece. After your first piece is made, you can then use that leather piece as a template to make your additional leather pieces. I just used a razor blade to cut out my leather. If you're wondering where I got these leather strips from, I got them from a local leather shop here where I live. They were fairly inexpensive. I paid about $12 total for everything. Not only does it make you feel better to support a local business, but you get to meet a skilled tradesman in the process and probably learn a little something. That's where I learned how to use these tools. You know, I ask questions. I may not be doing it perfectly, but I'm trying. Here I'm using a skiver just to kind of edge up everything so it's a little more appealing to the touch. And now that first piece is made, I'm using it as a template for the others. Out of a darker tone leather, I cut out 2-inch long strips and punched a hole right in the center. And then I went and rounded off just the corners because I was trying to create that little band that's on the edges of the steamer trunk handles, like this. Here's what all the pieces look like all together. The shape is there, but they need a little more finishing. I use this product called Edge Coat to paint along the edges of the leather. It gives a nice finished look and it also protects it from fraying. All you need to do is just paint it on the rim. It dries really quick. And I highly recommend getting this tool for it. I don't recall what this tool is called, but it's got a pointed head with some valleys in it that hold your product, and then it twirls as you rub it along the edge of your leather, depositing all of that edge coat into your leather rim. So It's way easier than trying to do it with a Q-tip or trying to do it with a little paintbrush or even dabbing it on with your finger, which I don't recommend because this stuff is hard to wash off after it dries, as it's meant to stick onto leather. So yeah, it took me a moment before I ended up buying this tool, but it's way easier and it goes really quick. You can see how it just makes these pieces look a little more finished. And like I said, it does dry fast. I probably put them aside and let them dry for about 15 minutes before I continued on with the next parts. I just attached them onto the dresser with some brass head screws. Part of being creative is learning how to be crafty when you need to and improvise. These gold upholstery tacks I'm going to be using on the body of the dresser. They're pretty big. They're really sturdy. But I also needed some smaller tacks to use on the drawers. To put over here and here. I went to 4 different stores and wasn't able to find upholstery tacks. So I improvised. I'm gonna be using these gold thumbtacks. Nobody had gold upholstery tacks. Since I was using these tacks strictly for decorative purposes and not structural purposes, I thought they would do just fine. And they did. You can't even tell that they're thumbtacks. While I was on the hunt for some gold upholstery tacks, I figure I better try to find some other embellishments. I was looking for some latches like a steamer trunk has, and I came across these draw catch latches, which were perfect. They're even in a gold tone. 2 of them come in a pack, so I grabbed 2 packs of them since I have 4 drawers, and I used that pattern to find my center points. Luckily, it was centered right in the middle, so I was able to just line up that center piece on all the drawers. I then drilled some pilot holes, some shallow pilot holes, and screwed those screws in by hand. After the drawers were finished, it was time to embellish the rest of the dresser. I wanted to mimic these rivets on the side of the trunk, so I used those really large upholstery tacks and just placed them where a rivet would be on a steamer trunk. I first drilled in little pilot holes with my Dremel because these are really thick tacks and I didn't want to split this wood. And then I just kind of tapped them in real lightly with my mallets. There you go. They look like rivets. I didn't want to go too crazy placing these large tacks everywhere, so I only put them on the places where they would have been on an actual trunk, along the seams and where 2 pieces of wood were joined together. All of these little embellishments really made this piece come to life. But before I show you what it looks like, let me show you what we started with.
You call up when you're down. Wanna be the first who knows all of your deepest secrets. Can I be the one who wakes you up before you missed your ride? 'Cause I wanna be close to you, and I wanna show you something new. You gotta know, every day I got your back, yeah, you can count on me for that. So put your hand in mine, I will be there every day. When you're sick of the climb, I will make sure it's okay. I know you didn't ask for it.
you like this video and would like to see more content from me, please subscribe and hit that notification bell so you never miss a video. You can also follow me on Facebook and Instagram to see what I'm doing in between these videos. As always, thank you so much for watching. Until next time, happy junking.